We've unboxed it, we've reviewed it, we've rooted it. We've given you in-depth feature coverage on every nook and cranny of the Samsung Galaxy S3. And now that it's seeing its stateside launch on 5 US carriers, it's time to do it again. This is Michael Fisher, this is Pocket Now, and this is the video review of the Sprint Samsung Galaxy S3. Let's check it out. As I wrote in my full review, which you can read at pocketnow.com, I started my mobile phone life with a Samsung phone on Sprint 11 years ago. So it's only right that I should kick off my first review of the summer with a Samsung phone on Sprint. Now, normally when there's a high-profile device launch across multiple US carriers, we get to take you through what elements of this specific model differ from the international version and from its sister versions across the carriers. But Samsung now has enough brand power with the Galaxy brand to make every Galaxy S3 essentially identical across all of the major carriers. Essentially identical. That means the same positives: an attractive pebble-like design with almost no straight lines, display glass that curves down into the body of the phone, an extremely pocket-friendly slimness and lightweight. There's also the big, bright LED notification light up top, invisible when off, which I love, and the backlit menu and navigation keys down here. Like Brandon, I found the back key's placement to the right of the home key to be unintuitive. Unlike Brandon, though, I kind of like how the light diffuses through the casing on the marble white version here. In the dark, the notification light up here illuminates the whole bezel, making the phone almost glow in the dark. Some will find it cheap looking, but I don't mind it. In fact, I love it. Being identical to its international cousin, though, also means the same negatives here as well. A fake-looking brushed aluminum bezel with a visible seam running down the middle, and materials that, while they aren't actually cheap, it's polycarbonate under a hyperglazed coating, still feel cheap at times. The device feels smooth and comfortable in the hand, but it picks up fingerprints and skin oils very, very readily, and it doesn't handle drops terribly well either. That plastic bezel already has a nice-looking chip in it here on my international version after a very slight drop. Also, we've posted a few pieces at Pocket Now about when a smartphone can be too light. For me, the Galaxy S3 is definitely one of them. To my hands, it just feels lower quality than similar devices in its class, like the HTC One X. As always, though, your mileage will vary when it comes to subjective stuff like this. This is probably the most subjective area of any mobile phone review, is the feel in hand. About half of the friends and family I allowed to handle this phone agreed with me that it felt a little too light, a little too cheap. But the other half thought it felt fine. Some of them even said it felt too heavy. So you want to go to a retail store and handle this in your hand. Don't listen to me, don't listen to anybody. Just go handle it for yourself. I can only tell you how it feels to me. Ask them in the retail store if they can give you a model to hold yourself so that you don't have to deal with the rubber bandy tether on the back of it, and see how it feels to you before you pull the trigger on it. Now, popping off the battery cover here, we can catch one of the only visible distinctions between the international and the Sprint versions of the device. The Sprint version does not have a removable SIM. That won't matter much to people who don't swap phones often, but for you swap junkies, that may make a difference. Just like with visual appearance, the specs on the Sprint Galaxy S3 are similar to its international cousin, with a 4.8-inch Super AMOLED display and a 1.9 megapixel camera here up front, and on the back, an 8-megapixel backside illuminated camera with flash. Under the hood, though, is where the differences come up. The Sprint Galaxy S3 gets rid of the quad-core Exynos processor in favor of a dual-core Qualcomm S4 running at 1.5 GHz. That may sound like a downgrade, but the S4 is built on the superior Crate architecture using a 28-nanometer process. There's more on this in our comparison videos and the full review, but the bottom line is that performance doesn't suffer much at all. That's also thanks in part to the extra gig of RAM Samsung added to the US models. And of course, using the Qualcomm CPU meant Samsung could build in support for LTE, which will be a lot more relevant once Sprint starts lighting up its first LTE markets later this month. For software, the Galaxy S3 is running the same thing on the Sprint version as it is on the international version. It is Android 4.0.4 with the TouchWiz 5 Nature UX layer on top. That means the same relatively lightweight, customized experience as the international version, with nice additions to the UX like the toggle bar here in the notification drawer, which Sprint has tweaked a little in their version, along with the improvements Google brought to the table with Ice Cream Sandwich, like these side-swipeable notifications here to get rid of them. As for the Nature UX elements, well, I've said before that the analogy seems forced, and I haven't changed my mind after about a month of exposure to the skin. I don't really need to hear the sounds of a water droplet every time I press fast forward in the music widget. It got old very quickly. Fortunately, that's easy to change. Also easy to change, though you wouldn't know it right away necessarily, is the app launcher. Now by default, instead of listing all apps alphabetically, like in stock ICS, it lists the out-of-the-box apps first, alphabetically, followed by the apps you've installed chronologically. It's not the most ideal situation. It's good that you can change this with the tap of a menu button, but frankly, and call me what you want, it took me watching Brandon Miniman's review to realize that. I know, amateur hour. Overall, I found the device to run quite smoothly, even on intensive tasks like downloading large files while browsing large web pages. Pop-up play works as well as it did on the international version as well. I share many of the same thoughts as Brandon does in his review of the international version. TouchWiz is not at its best in the email app or with the keyboard, which is just a disaster in its English implementation. The keyboard looks like the stock ICS version, but it's not. Autocorrect is very, very aggressive, and it's impossible to go back and modify a part of a word. The software assumes that you're making a new word regardless of whether you're in the middle of another one or not. It'll probably do fine for occasional texters, but that's not really the target market of the Galaxy S3. If it bugs you, you'll want to download a keyboard that's more to your liking. Again, thanks to the nature of Android, that's very easy to do. It's anybody's guess when Samsung will bring Jelly Bean to the Galaxy S3, but the extra gig of RAM in the US version was meant to future-proof the device for just that reason. In any event, the software experience is better than good enough as it is. Just like on the international version, the camera performs excellently, though I wish HDR were the default setting out of the box, as pictures taken in that mode tended to be far superior to their non-HDR counterparts. Samsung's Panorama mode is also slightly easier to use than on the Galaxy Nexus and stock ICS, but it also takes a very, very steady hand. Burst Shot came in handy a few times, and video was crisp and smooth with great audio. Using stabilization tended to make the video more jumpy in my tests, though. You'll want to experiment with your own preferences. Now, I tested the Galaxy S3 on Sprint between Boston, New York City, and Eastern Long Island, so two very urban areas and one very rural one. And generally, my experience was positive the whole way. Now, Sprint has not flipped the switch on their LTE network in the United States yet, so all that testing was done on their 1X EVDO 3G CDMA network. And I was surprised at the quality. Voice calls were just fine, with good, strong, and clear audio. Callers said I sounded fine. As usual, speakerphone use was a little tinny, but acceptable. Data rates were pretty good too, and I was surprised at how well data-intensive applications worked. Spotify, Pandora, and Netflix in particular did very well, even though I had such a limited bandwidth connection. It was only the image-intensive apps like Instagram that stuttered. Did I miss LTE? Absolutely, but it wasn't as painful an experience on 3G as I thought it would be. Now, that's in well-covered areas, mind you. And when I went out into the boonies or when I was in Yankee Stadium with 40,000 other people trying to upload a Facebook picture, performance was obviously worse. Also, the phone tended to run very hot under the Galaxy S3 branding here. It got very, very, very hot in the palm, much more so than its international progenitor. When it's getting hot hunting for service or fighting a high noise floor in a crowded stadium, the GS3 will run out of juice quickly. Like any other smartphone, really. But in normal conditions, if you live in a well-covered area and you use smart power management techniques, like we've covered in our earlier videos, the Sprint Galaxy S3 should last you longer than a lot of Android-powered phones. Some of that is due to fancy features like Smart Stay, and some of it is thanks to the beefy 2100 mAh battery. In any case, if you are a power user, you'll want to still carry around a spare battery or a battery pack. But the average user should be able to squeeze a day out of this device, at least until LTE comes out. There's a lot I didn't cover in this video review, but not because it wasn't worth covering. It's because we've covered a lot of it already in our existing reviews and head-to-heads, but also there's so many more features on this phone than on almost any other phone. It's amazing. It's a bundle of new features. So here's what I liked. I've never handled a phone with this many innovations packed into one casing. I mean, sure, a lot of them are gimmicky and not all of them work perfectly, but many of them are very, very useful, and a lot of them will turn heads. Also, the basic and advanced features required of modern smartphones are all handled so well by the GS3. It's really an incredible performer. The new TouchWiz is so light and so improved over its previous iterations that I like it better than the new HTC Sense, which I liked a lot on the HTC One X. I love the camera on this phone, which is the best one I've used on an Android smartphone, and it blows my Galaxy Nexus out of the water. I like that it can get through a day on one battery charge if I'm smart about it. I like that if I don't know what a feature does, there's probably a tutorial there to tell me about it. And even though it's pen tile, I love the big, bright, saturated display. I don't like the hyperglaze coating, the plastic bezel masquerading as metal, and the unintuitive way some of the UI works. I don't like the dripping water sound effects, and I don't like how hot the device gets when it's under a heavy processing load. And I don't like some of the bloat Sprint has added. In particular, its very annoying loss of data message that pops up every time I'm on the subway and I lose coverage. Now, would any of that stop me if I were on Sprint and in the market for a top-of-the-line smartphone? No. If you're in the market for a smartphone, don't mind 3G data speeds for the time being, and want to be on one of the few carriers left in the US that gives you truly unlimited data, or at least doesn't throttle you before 5 gigabytes, the Galaxy S3 deserves your top consideration. As of this week, the Galaxy S3 is available in all Sprint sales channels. On my scoreboard, the Sprint Galaxy S3 gets a 4 out of 5. Be sure to read my full review at pocketnow.com and check out Brandon's review if you haven't already of the international Galaxy S3. Also, we've got reviews coming for all 4 variants of the Galaxy S3 in the United States, so stay tuned for those. You can follow us on Twitter. The official account is PocketNowTweets. You can follow me on Twitter. I'm Captain2Phones. That's Captain, the number 2, Phones. And if you like the video, be sure and give us a thumbs up. If you want to leave a comment, do so at pocketnow.com to join the discussion there. We try and respond to as many of those as we can. We generally can't respond to the YouTube comments because there's too many of them. But thank you very much for those, and thank you for watching. Stay tuned for the next one, which will be coming very soon, and we'll see you next time.